Alright, welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is doing well. Let's talk about the fighter of the year. Now, there's a lot of discussion about this currently. Obviously, it's the end of the year. What an amazing year we just had, by the way. 2023 has been an absolutely magnificent year for boxing. Hopefully, we can get almost as good one, if not better, in 2024. There's a lot of fighters and a lot of fights that can be made that can certainly get us close to it. But let's talk about these candidates, right? We obviously got Terence Bud Crawford, Naoya Inoue, David Benavidez has been mentioned. Some people are throwing in Joseph Parker, probably off the back of the Wilder win. He has fought 4 times this year, but you know, that's a stretch. Canelo's been thrown in the mix. Obviously, Devin Haney, and rightfully so. He's put himself as the best, as has Terence Crawford, and I'm assuming Naoya Inoue has. But the key talking point is people think that you can't be fighter of the year fighting once a year. Right? Terence Crawford only had 1 fight this year, albeit an epic performance. And we were witnessing greatness, you know, at the end of the day. But something I found out earlier yesterday, and shout out to any boxing historians and people that, you know, keep the sport in check. Marvin Hagler, 1985, fighter of the year. Guess who he fought? Tommy Hearns. Fought once in 1985, became fighter of the year. Now, obviously, that was an epic fight. And this, you know, an iconic fight we're still talking about today. So, to say you can't fight once a year and be fighter of the year is inaccurate. And you know, I don't go on Twitter often. It's a fairly deplorable platform, but I was on there earlier and I follow Breadman. He's great. You know, anytime you get an opportunity to try to follow him on anything, you learn a lot. And he actually retweeted somebody that, you know, brought up this you know, fact that there's been plenty of fighters that have won fighter of the year with just fighting once a year. So the question is, what do you know, there has to be a context to it, right? You have to look at the fight, the magnitude of the fight, the context, how the win was, because we were talking about that being our Hagler Hearns in this generation. It was built up for a very long time. It was an absolutely massive fight, and he put on an absolutely amazing performance, and that has to go a long way. So obviously, look, then Inoue, right, becomes undisputed super bantamweight champion after defeating another champion. He wiped out Stephen Fulton, and that, you know, both of those fights were pretty good. They were like a few days apart, and you know, when you're watching that as a boxing fan, I was just like, I had my breath taken away, both performances, you know, because you are witnessing greatness, and I'm just like, wow, God, because I picked Inoue to win, but you know, I thought it'd be a closer fight. A lot of people was picking Fulton to win, and that's how you announce your greatness, and you announce, you know, your ability to win these awards, I guess. You know, obviously they're not thinking that at the time, but that's how you catapult yourself into the top of the list, is just destroy somebody. And then Bud Crawford did the exact same thing, if not more. In fact, more. He destroyed Spence, you know, and his claim on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, you know, he was saying, you know, he's the only one to beat a top 5 pound for pound fighter. X undefeated. Spence was a unified champ at the time. And, you know, there was a lot of people that thought it was going to be a close fight. A lot of people. I did a poll. Hundreds of people voted. Most people thought Spence was going to knock him out. I picked Bud to win that fight, but on points, but I did not see it going to be that destructive. There were a couple of people that pulled that prediction out, and fair play to them. But look, it was an amazing performance, and he's got a point. He has got a point, you know, like he was a top pound per pound fighter at the time. Now people after the fight will say, well, you know, it wasn't himself and all this. I don't agree with that. I think if you look at some of the similarities he was doing in the Ugas fight to the fight he was doing against Crawford, he was doing a lot of similar things, the leaning in and all that. But there are talks about, you know, his neurological stuff and how he managed it and how he looked before the fight. Yeah, I get it, but we'll never know really. But you got to put it down to Bud Crawford and that performance. Something else I want to say too, this is a hypothetical, so it doesn't really matter. Let's just say Bud Crawford did squeeze another fight in. Let's just say he fought around December time, right? Let's just say Avanesian. hypothetically, I know it's a bit silly, but if he'd have squeezed in another fight against somebody like Avanesian, somebody who was supposed to beat and somebody he looked good against and knocked them out, and then he fought twice a year, would that change it for you? Probably, because he fought twice, right? But really and truly, he's always going to win those fights against the likes of people like Avanesian. So just because he did fight twice a year, is my point, is like, would that have really mattered? Because, you know, you got to look at the opponents, obviously, top guys Inoue's wiping out easily, you know. I know he had a decent fight with Tapales, but, you know, and he said it was one of his more, not toughest fights, but, I forget what word he used. I just read the article. My memory's so bad. But nonetheless, look, these are top guys. Tapales was a unified champ. He beat Akhmadaliev. And, you know, he's been in the game a long time. I think he's had about 3 or 4 losses since. And he wasn't really considered a threat to Inoue. But he still, at that time, was a unified champ coming off a great win. But the Fulton one was, I think we were more impressed with that one, how he did it and how he looked, because he looked unbeatable at that time, going up in weight as well, and his power traveled up. His jab was unbelievable. Then look at Bud Crawford. So I would say, well, look, let's talk about Devin Haney and Benavidez before I make my assumption, because I don't normally do Fighter of the Year stuff like this, but it's the end of the year. It's been a great year. Let's just throw it out there. Have a bit of fun with it. Let me know your thoughts on who you think Fighter of the Year is. You know, Devin Haney, at the end of the day, he has had an absolutely fantastic year. No doubt about it. But you do have to look at the Loma fight. And I'm not saying he lost that fight at all. I'm saying it could have gone either way. I did score it either way. I scored it 3 times and had 3 different, you know, outcomes. Draw, win, win. But it was a very close fight. So that has to be a little note there. You know, and then obviously he completely wiped out Regis and won another belt. He's had a great year, no doubt about it, no doubt about it. But the closeness of the fight with Lomachenko has to be considered, I think, you know. And then Benavidez too, look, he's had a great year as well. And it's the willingness to go and fight these fights. And look, Plant stepped up to the plate too, came up short. A lot of people thought maybe, if you're being generous, you could have given a draw there. I don't think so. I think Benavidez clearly won that. But I see some people's arguments. You could have had 5-1 up for Plant, and maybe he squeezed one more round in somewhere, or 6 up. It's not inconceivable, but, you know, he dominated really in the back end, and he was the clear winner for me, Benavidez. And then obviously he completely wiped out Andrade. Although Andrade had a couple of rounds where we're kind of nip and tuck and a bit closer, and he did what he could. But, you know, after the 4th, it was all she wrote. Great year for Benavidez, no doubt about it. But neither of those two really, for me, come close. And then for me, I think, I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, like, the way I would say it is, like, Bud Crawford is still the best fighter in the he's still the best fighter in the sport. And he's had the best performance in the sport against Spence. Does he become best fighter of the year? It's a close one for me. It really is. Like, there's so much criteria to break it down. I mean, I probably would say by like a whisker Inoue, you know. But I wouldn't also have a major issue if you wanted to have Bud in there, because, like I said, what he did to Errol Spence was jaw-dropping, eye-opening, as was Inoue what he did to Fulton. And then, you know, they were kind of neck and neck, and it was like, oh, you know, Bud, and then Bud kind of squeezed the I guess if you're talking pound for pound, you know, you have to go off of performances, you do, and, you know, just not Bud's fault he didn't fight, I don't think, but then, you know, you get that back in the lead from Inoue with a great, amazing performance, and then he becomes an undisputed super bantamweight. Has to be him for me, just ever so slightly. But at the same time, like I said, I get it when people want to put him up there. There's nothing wrong with having one fight with the magnitude of the fight that was the biggest fight, you know, in the last decade, really. Spence Crawford was built up and was the biggest fight, and he put an absolutely sensational performance in. So, you know, big respect to him. Quickly, let's talk about Trainer of the Year, very quickly, because Obviously, Bill Haney's been mentioned, rightfully so. Bomac, rightfully so. And I said this pre-AJ fight, I was like, if Ben Davison gets a good performance out of AJ, I think he has to be at least considered. And a lot of US fans might not know who he is, but he brought Lee Wood back and won the title back off of Maurizio Lara. He, masterminded Fabio Wardley's win over David Alalay. I know it; these aren't higher level fights. I get that, but he's been consistent with his game plan. He's brought Anthony Joshua in to basically, give him a resurgence. Would he have done that without him? I think AJ wouldn't have been as free fighting and as free flowing and looked as confident without it. I think he just disarmed him a little bit, and instead of giving all these straight instructions and not fight like this, he's just like, oh man, relax, be yourself, go out there and perform like you can, and that takes a special coach to understand, not just to give him how you should fight, do this. It's like, be yourself, bro. I'll give you the game plan, go and do you. And I think that's what he did, and I think he deserves a tremendous amount of credit for that. And he says at the very least he should be in the mix. And I haven't thought deeply enough to know who other trainers there are there. I'm sure there's plenty, but that's it from me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about Fighter of the Year. Do you think one fight is okay? I don't have a problem with it, but like I said, for me, it's just a whisker. I've got a new way. That's it from me. 2023 is over. I've got a crazy busy next few days. I've got like 4 DJ gigs in like 3 days. So I'm probably not going to be doing any more videos until the new year. So I wish everybody, a great new year. I hope you had a wonderful holidays. I really do. I really appreciate anybody that's locked in and supported the channel. Much love to you. Thank you very much. If you are new, hit the subscribe button. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. It's got to come from here. Have a lovely few days. Take care of yourself, man. I'll see you in 2024. We're going to have a great year.